We've heard that there's something coming out today, a plan coming out today. Speaker McCarthy is engaging in dangerous economic hostage taking. And so it is clear that extreme House Republicans, the MAGA House Republicans, what they want to do, they've been very clear about this. They have told us over and over again, they want to increase costs for hardworking families, take food assistance and health care away from millions of Americans, and increase the debt when combined with House Republicans' proposal for tax giveaways skewed for the super rich, special interests, and profitable companies. And that seems to be their priority. That is what they've put forth. And the president was very clear yesterday. He's like, what are they doing? What is the MAGA Republicans doing? Why would this speaker, like no other speaker has done this before, threaten default? Why would he do this? And so again, we've heard that this is coming out today, but we've been very clear about how we see what MAGA Republicans have been doing these past couple months.
But we've been very clear about how we see what MAGA Republicans have been doing these past couple months.
The House Republicans just passed the only bill in Washington that lifts the debt limit, ends wasteful Washington spending, and puts America back on the right economic path. That we're going to limit the growth in the future. We're going to save by pulling back this unspent COVID money. We're going to grow this economy by making us energy independent again and getting more people, encouraging them back to work. The sad part here is now the Democrats need to do their job. The president can no longer ignore by not negotiating. Senator Schumer, if he thinks he's got a plan, put it on the floor. See if you can pass it, and then we can go to conference. But now, the president can no longer put this economy in jeopardy. We lifted the debt limit. We've sent it to the Senate. We've done our job, the only body in here that's done theirs. The Senate, I got to give them credit. They did name March Maple Syrup Month, and they have thanked UConn and congratulated them for their basketball win. But they've done nothing when it comes to the economy or the debt limit.
The president's bold climate and environmental justice agenda could not stand in starker contrast to the dangerous proposals MAGA House Republicans are putting forward. As you can see from the slide behind me, here you go. While President Biden is fighting to clean up toxic pollution and lower costs through clean energy tax credit, Speaker McCarthy unveiled a ransom note holding our economy hostage. It's a 320-page plan to kill jobs, fill our cities with smog, and give asthma to our children. The proposal would repeal the Inflation Reduction Act's green energy tax credit, sending thousands of jobs back to China. It would make it easier for oil companies to use toxic chemicals that cause severe burns, damage people's eyes, and quite literally melt bones. It would severely weaken the Clean Air Act, sending us back to the times when cities across the country filled with heavy smog that dirties our air and poisons the lungs of our children. It's no surprise that over a dozen health and medical organizations, including the American Lung Association and the Children's Environmental Health Network, oppose these dangerous proposals. Speaker McCarthy, extreme MAGA proposals would be a climate and health disaster that President Biden won't allow on his watch. Speaker McCarthy redoubled his threat to default and hold the American economy hostage unless he can slash programs that the American people, including our nation's veterans, rely on every single day. While the president's budget honors our country's sacred obligation for care for America's veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors, Speaker McCarthy's proposal would cut these critical programs by 22% and threaten critical services for veterans. The congressional Republican plan is to threaten veterans' health, food, housing, and even grave sites for brinksmanship over the debt ceiling.
Meanwhile, guess what my MAGA Republican friends in Congress are up to? The Speaker of the House went to Wall Street last week, proposed huge cuts in important programs, cut all discretionary spending by 22%, including ones I've just named. Programs millions of working and middle-class Americans count on. At the same time, he and his MAGA Republican colleagues are pushing some tax giveaways for the wealthiest Americans and biggest corporations. They'd rather see kids and seniors struggle to eat what they need, people on Medicaid, lose their health care. Veterans lose access to doctor's visits. And that's part of it, by the way, not a joke. The same old trickle down dressed up in MAGA clothing. Only worse. Because this time, they're saying if they get their way, they will if they don't get their way, if Biden doesn't agree with them and agree to all the cuts and these tax increases for others, working people, they're going to let the country default on its debt.
Speaker McCarthy must not waste time. He must not play chicken, if you will, with the full faith and credit of our nation.
Just to be clear, this bill would do that. It would avoid a default.
So a couple of things I want to say about this. Let's just take a step back for a second. We're not a deadbeat nation. House Republicans are holding our economy hostage and threatening default, crashing the economy, jeopardizing hardworking Americans' retirement, and causing millions of Americans to lose their jobs. We're not a deadbeat nation. House Republicans are holding the economy hostage, threatening Americans' jobs and retirement savings unless we and the Senate agree on an extreme MAGA wish list of slashing education, veterans' health care, and Meals on Wheels, taking away health care from millions of Americans, and sending manufacturing jobs overseas. We're not a deadbeat nation. It'll increase cost of working families, as I've talked about before from here at this podium, and what this bill will do. It'll kill jobs, and it's all to pay for tax cuts for the super rich and profitable companies. It's not how we grow our economy. The president has been very clear how he sees our economy moving forward. We're not a deadbeat nation. So again, we took a step back. We're not negotiating on this. We've been very clear. It is their constitutional duty to take action.
How can you explain this? How can you explain the fact that grown men and women are unwilling to budge up till now, and still some of them are still unwilling to budge, by taking an absolute position, my way or no way? That's not governing. That's no way to govern. You can't govern that way. This is a cycle. I predict to you that a lot of those new members who came here with my way or the highway, they'll either be on the highway or they'll learn that they have to have compromise. So, again, we took a step back. We're not negotiating on this. We've been very clear. It is their constitutional duty to take action.
Thanks, Karine. The nation's biggest business lobbying group, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, is now directly calling on the administration to sit down and negotiate on the debt limit, saying the administration should sit with congressional leaders, not delay to find a path to raise the debt ceiling and address runaway deficits. Will the president sit down with Speaker McCarthy, at least right now, on the budget, as he said he would yesterday?
So, been very clear. Been very, very clear on this. Again, not mincing words here. What we have seen, they've put together, is an agenda, an extreme MAGA wish list that basically says they're connecting the two, right? They're saying to the Senate, they're saying to the president that we have to go with this agenda in its full form. And the president has said really clearly, when it comes to the debt ceiling, they cannot allow this to happen. This is the Republicans in the House. They cannot allow this to happen. It is their constitutional duty to do so. I've gotten this question that you've asked me many different ways. I've answered it the same way. I don't have anything new to say. They should not allow any default. They should not allow our economy to be held hostage.
Republicans in the House have now passed a bill that would prevent a default. So at what point does it have to, that doesn't mean anything. It has to be a clean bill before the president will sit down and
we have said very clearly, they need to deal with what's at stake here, what's at hand, which is our economy, which is making sure that we do not default. We've never been a deadbeat nation, and this is not the time to do that. And this is their this is something that they're supposed to be doing, that they have done. I read through this with Democratic and Republican presidents. This is their basic constitutional duty to do. And so we've been very clear on this.
So are you concerned that the business community will blame the president if he doesn't negotiate and the government defaults?
What I've been very clear about, and what we're concerned is about what House Republicans are doing, and what they are threatening and have been threatening for some time, which is to hold our economy hostage and a potential default, which we have never done, And that is why we're going to continue to say to them, call them out, and say they need to do their constitutional duty. This is their job. This is their job to do. They did it 3 times under the last administration. We've been very clear about this. This is not confusing. It should not be confusing for them.
Why are you confident the public will see it that way and lay the blame on them and not on the administration?
Well, we've been very clear about what the bill they put forward, that what's in that bill, right? We've talked about it numerous times. The president has talked about it. I talked about it. And we're going to continue to communicate with the American people. When you think about a 22% tax cut, I should say, to programs that Americans really need, whether it's a veterans program, whether it's Meals on Wheels, whether it's health care, whether it's education, that's what they put forward. That's what Republicans voted on. House Republicans voted on it just yesterday. And so we're going to continue to be very clear on that. And it is their constitutional duty. And they have to make sure that we are not a deadbeat nation. That's what's happening here. We cannot be a deadbeat nation. We have never failed in history to pay our debts.
Okay, and on the debt ceiling, this used to be a kind of theoretical parlor game thing, like what will happen if there's actually a debt cliff and you go over it. Now, it's actually getting closer now. And if the two sides stick to their guns, and the president clearly is sticking to his guns on this, if there's a default, is he gaming out what would be a plan B to actually stop the crisis? Is the $1 trillion coin, the 14th Amendment, these things being teed up?
All of the things that you just listed, that's clearly something that the U.S. Treasury, right, is going to speak to. I'm not going to speak to from here on that. But look, this is a question for Congress. It is their constitution. I cannot say this enough from here, and I know you probably get tired of me saying this from here over and over again, but it is true. It is their constitutional duty to get this done. It is. They did it 3 times. Democrats joined Republicans 3 times in the last administration to get this done, to make sure that we did not default, to make sure that we were not a deadbeat nation. So again, this is something that they need to do. It's very simple. Avoiding default is a constitutional obligation Congress has to the American people. That is their obligation, not to us, not to this president, but to the American people.
You've had now Democrats saying that Republicans have come to the table, might not like what they came to the table with, but it's time for the dialogue. How long can this posture from the president last before it feels like intellectually dishonest to say, they're holding the economy hostage and not raising the debt ceiling when they did pass a bill to raise the debt ceiling, and the argument's really about the budget cuts, the spending cuts, and not about whether or not the debt ceiling gets raised.
So I have to say, Jackie, I disagree with the intellectually dishonest. That is certainly not how we see ourselves here, because we've been very, very clear that they need to deal with the debt ceiling. They need to not default. It is a constitutional duty. And again, this is not to us. This is to the American people. If you think
it's a clean bill.
I've been very clear. Without conditions, we will not negotiate. There's nothing new there. What you're seeing that the House Republicans have done is they said that unless the president, and I've said this before, this is nothing new that I'm about to say, unless the president and the Senate agree to an extreme MAGA wish list, slashing education, veterans health care, Meals on Wheels, taking away health care from millions of Americans, and sending manufacturing jobs overseas, they're going to default and crash the economy. We've said this over and over and over again and been very clear. The president does not agree with this bill. He believes, and we believe, and the American people deserve this, that they need to do their constitutional duty. They need to do this so that they are not holding the economy, our American economy hostage. We cannot be a deadbeat nation. We cannot be.
No meaning less to clean debt.
Look, we've been very clear about this. We've been very, very clear. I appreciate the question.
We've been very clear about this. We've been very, very clear. I appreciate the merit of the question.